This is Caps PA announcer Wes Johnson, and you're listening to Board the Pod.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of What the Puck. It is a Washington Capitals podcast, and that means it's a podcast about your 2018 Stanley Cup champions. Thank you all for listening to us on all of your favorite podcast platforms and watching us live here on July 3rd, and the music's starting over. It loops. I hate that about StreamYard. I will say that the music is always set to loop. Why? Don't loop it. I don't like it. But anyway,
a little dance move in.
Thank you all for watching along. Let us know how you're watching. We are live right now on YouTube, on Twitch, on my X feed at Brando Cash is where you can check us out there. And are we on Instagram? I don't see if Instagram's working or not. So I don't know if
we have one of those.
We do have an Instagram. Absolutely, we do. Let me see if I can do that. And then next, stream key. I don't know where to put that.
If you're doing something, I don't see it.
Connect streaming software to go live. I don't see where to do that in here. That's why we're figuring this out in the off season. It says you are live on Instagram. So that's, let me see.
The entire Instagrams, all of them. That didn't even make any sense.
See, I can't do that. Can I edit that? I cannot edit that. Okay. So yeah, Brando Cash Pods _ Reels. Is this how we go live there? Connect streaming software to go live. I thought I did that. Go live. Did I not do that? No? Okay. Well, we're going to figure out Instagram a little bit later. That's what we'll do. But we are live on Twitch, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on X. So thank you all for listening and watching along with us. The Capitals have been very busy this week. So Coach Dan and I said, hey, we got to do a show. There's a lot going on. Of course, we have the July 4th holiday coming up this week. We had Canada Day, as well as free agency started as well for the NHL. So it's been a busy week in the NHL. Coach Dan, how you doing? How you feeling? Your summer going well?
Yeah, man. It with free agency underway, I'm doing well. I was very excited about the move. I know we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, but I was very excited about the moves that they made.
Right. We did a special show not too long ago about the Darcy Kemper trade for Dubois. So we know that's going on. But since then, Brian McClellan has not been resting on his laurels. He has not been sitting poolside or anything like that. He's not going to the Mirage or the Bellagio, just gambling at the tables in Vegas. No, he has been a busy dude and bringing in and sending out a lot of different players. He obviously knew that there were some issues on this Capitals team the last year, maybe even last 2 years. And he's addressing those issues. I mean, do you want to go through them one by one of these new players that have been brought in via trade or free agency? You just want to go one by one there? You want to talk about, what each of them means? How do you want to do this?
I think we could do kind of a recap. I thought the most interesting aspect in regards to free agency was that after the draft, which we can go over kind of the guys that they took in the draft. After the draft, they didn't leave Vegas. They set up their own sort of situation room there. And we're like, we're not wasting time being in the air, where I feel like you still would have cellular service. But although it's probably better than we have on the ground. I don't know about you, but I feel like smartphones are getting smarter and cell service is getting dumber. Like I cannot get a phone call out or in, even on a landline, without being like, what did you just say? Anyways,
I think that's just you.
That's my Verizon gripe in Montgomery County. Anyways, so I thought it was really telling that they were like, we're not wasting time on a plane. And I was like, ooh, okay, they've come to play. Like they're not messing around. And so they've made a ton of moves to reshape this roster. we've talked about, we don't have to go into this anymore. We talked about the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade for Darcy Kemper, brought in Dubois from LA, sent Kemper to LA. It's a 1-for-1. We've talked that to death, right? We're excited. Apparently Ovechkin sent Brian McClellan a thumbs up text after that trade. So he's excited about the trade. And I thought we can talk about the other guy that they brought in, but we brought in one of his teammates from LA who had some nice things to say about him. So, all this talk about sort of Dubois being like a bad teammate. He wanted out of Columbus, then he wanted out of Winnipeg. Like the other dude shut that down. We'll talk about him in a minute. So in terms of guys they brought in, and I'm probably going to butcher his name because I'm not quite confident in how to say it. But after Dubois, they made a trade with Calgary, and they brought in forward Andrew Mangiapane. Or Mangiapane? Pan? It's probably like just like Mangiapane or something.
We'll find out soon enough.
I think it's Mangiapane. So they brought him in from Calgary. So there's your top 6 forward, kind of hopefully offensive production coming from him. Second line right wing would be my guess. We can talk about the lineup, or at least my predictions for the lineup a little later. They then made a surprise trade, considering the conversations that pretty much everyone has been having in terms of the goaltending department next year. But they went ahead and brought in goalie Logan Thompson from Vegas. And this is a guy who was starting a number of games for Vegas, had some injury troubles. Otherwise, he probably would have been their starting goalie during the playoffs. But for a 2024 third-round pick and 2025 third-round pick. So now they've got a 1-2 punch of Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. Thompson, who has some familiarity with the Capitals organization because he played in South Carolina.
That's right. He's a former Stingray.
19? 2021? Something around there. Like he played with the Stingrays. So he's got some familiarity with the organization.
Did you see the video of the fans that found out at the Sphere that he had been traded away? Okay. Like, he seems like he was a very well-liked guy in Las Vegas. It seems like the fans really liked him. It seems like they were all kind of thrown off of the fact that he was traded away.
At least the fans there were very surprised. And when I went on Twitter and was kind of like looking around when the trade happened, Vegas fans were like, what? What? And that's all we gave up, or that's all we got in return to get him, to give him up. I don't think I phrased that well. But then the people on Twitter they were like, Caps won this one. Like the Caps made a great move. The Mangiapane trade, everyone was like, the Dubois one that's been hit or miss in terms of people liking or not liking it. But like every other move they made, people were like job well done. They're definitely making some good moves. But the Logan Thompson one, did you see that he got woken up to learn about the trade? Like they called him to be like, dude, we're sending you to DC. But then also he then had to go down, didn't have to, but he went down and did an autograph signing.
Yeah.
As a Vegas player that was already set up. And he's like, well, I want to do it for the fans. So he still went through with it, even though he got traded. And not only that, but then because he was at the draft, he met up with new teammate / former, not only teammate, but a roommate at Caps developmental camp, Alexi Protas. So they got to hang out for a little bit and have a chat. So there's a nice little full circle thing going on with this guy. We can talk about the goaltending department because it's very interesting after this season in terms of what this team might do, because they don't actually have anyone signed after this season that's currently on the NHL roster. But the big move that I like, my favorite move that a buddy of mine at work told me about, and he pronounced the dude's last name wrong. And so I was like, they did what now? They traded for who? And then he said Chukra. And I was like, what? So they traded to Ottawa, 33-year-old Nick Jensen. Like I say that like he's old. I'm 6 years older than him. But they traded 33-year-old Nick Jensen and his contract, which I think was less money than the dude they brought in, and a 2026 third-round pick. Another one of those things where you trade a draft pick, and it's like, a number of years in the future. Like, how do you have that conversation where we want a third-round pick in 2024? Right. Well, no, but you could have it in 25. Well, no. We're not willing to give that one up. 2026? Like, why is it that so far in the future? Anyways, they brought in the guy that I wanted like a year or two ago from Arizona, but they brought in defenseman Jacob Chukrin, who I wanted them to bring in from Arizona. I thought he would have been an amazing pickup. This is a top pairing defenseman that they brought in for a guy they wanted to get rid of because of his contract and his age, and Nick Jensen, and a third-round pick a couple years from now. This is a fantastic trade to bring this guy. This is easily top pairing or second pairing defenseman. He's a free agent after the season, so they kind of want to see how he fits out. If he likes it here, if they like him here. But in my mind, he's paired up with Carlson, and he's great on the power play. He can probably play penalty kill. He can eat a lot of minutes, and he's 26. This is not a guy that's going into his they lost 7 years, a little bit more money, but brought in a top pairing defenseman. This was a great trade in my mind. This is a guy I've wanted on this roster. I hope it works out. And he also has some familiarity with the Capitals organization because one of the Caps coaches he worked with in Arizona.
Huh.
And
You were so incredibly excited about this.
I could.
trade.
My buddy was like, they brought in this Churchrin guy, and I was like, Churchrin? And he goes, Chai, and I was like, CHYCHRUN. He goes, yeah. I was like, what? Like, this is a great trade for the Capitals.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they let Nick Jensen go just because I thought he was so well liked here. But then you were like, dude, look who they got for him. Like, you were so excited. You're like, yeah, this Nick Jensen's a good guy and all, but I'd rather have this other guy too.
Oh, I've already ordered his jersey. No, I haven't. I'm just kidding. I haven't done that yet. I'm just kidding.
If anybody out
be like,
there,
you need another T-shirt.
right. If anybody out there on social media over on X or Twitch or YouTube, if you'd like to chime in, make sure you join our live chat. We'll try to address any questions you have here on the show. Let us know who your favorite newest Capital is to join the team. So let us know. But Coach Dan, keep going. Who else we got?
He just looks at you and I was like, there's a live chat.
There is a live
I know
chat.
nothing about this. So anyways, so then they brought in a guy who I thought his name would be a little bit more fun, but it's not. It's very generic. But they brought in defenseman Matt Roy from, I wanted to be Matthew Waugh, because I just thought that'd be more fun to say. But they brought in Matt Roy, a defenseman from LA. I think he's 29, signed to 6 years, $30.5 million deal. Cap it comes out to 5.75. He was eating a lot of minutes in LA and playing quite well. This is a great second pairing defenseman who's going to be, he could probably play a little bit of power play minutes, but he's on the penalty kill. He's a defensive defenseman. I like this move. I'm a little worried about the terms because he'll be 35 at the end of his contract, and that 5.75. We don't know what the cap ceiling is going to be like, so it may end up being fine, but a little worried in terms of that cap hit towards the end. But before we get into the other guys that they brought in, I mean, they not completely, but that's a pretty big shift in terms of their defensemen going into this next season. I mean, you brought in two guys that are going to be in your top 4 defensemen. You didn't give up much for Chukrin. And then you brought in Roy, again, a little boring, but you brought in Roy to play big minutes on this roster. This defense went from kind of like, I don't know, to like, yo, this is an expensive but very good defensive core.
Now, do you think that they brought in these two new defensemen? Number one, I was a little shocked about it because I thought they were going to be focusing on offense. I wanted them, of course, to get younger and everything, but for them to bring in two new defensemen at such high price points, I'm like, oh, okay, they see the defense as an issue moving forward. Of course, John Carlson isn't getting any younger, so you kind of have to think about what to do with him as he gets older. So these guys might be a part of that team as well moving forward past this year. But is this a sign that they're giving Charlie Lindgren a chance at being a number 1 goaltender in the NHL, but they're not like 100% sold on him? Yes, he was great in net this year. There's probably a good chunk of fans out there that think we got into the playoffs for 4 games because of Charlie Lindgren in net. Do you think that these guys are going like, all right, we're giving Charlie a shot here, but we're going to need a better defensive core in front of him to really let him shine this year?
Could be part of it. I think they wanted to get a little bit younger on defense, and I think they wanted to just mix things up a bit. I think they definitely improved, like on paper, in terms of skill. Like if you're playing NHL 2025, like EA, whatever, right? I think that their overall number of stars or their overall rating for their defense has definitely gone up, like without question. You got Fehervari and Sandin, who have got another year under them. You've got Carlson, who's coming back, and then you've got younger and better in Matt Roy and Jacob Chukrin. Right now, I'm looking at this going, you have too many defensemen on this roster right now. Like, I know that McClellan came out today and said, it was like, we like having 8 defensemen. Well, your cap situation does not. And so we can talk about that in a little bit. But the defense has definitely gotten a lot better. I think bringing in Logan Thompson, they've definitely got a 1A, 1B type situation between him and Lindgren. And the fact that both of those guys are out of a contract after this season, I think pushes both of them to be like, I'm going to try and one up the other guy. Not in a bad way where they're like, yelling at each other in practice or anything, or doing anything behind the scenes that's bad. But I think they're going to push each other to be better, which only benefits this team because both of them are going to want to earn a new contract, be it as a starter, probably not the backup, or earn a new contract with another team. So both of them, they have to come out and do well because they will be without a team, at least not in DC, after the season. And this is the defense. You talked about wanting to bring in more goal scoring. That's kind of what we expected. We thought they'd do more with forwards. They did that through trade before we got to free agency and bringing in Dubois and Mangiapane. So they've got these guys coming in that should be able to produce. Interestingly enough, they both had 40 points last season for their respective teams, which the Caps already put them on their stats, which I thought was kind of funny, on their website, because they didn't get those points for the Capitals. But Mangiapane had 14 goals and 26 assists, whereas Dubois had 16 goals and 24 assists. But I feel like not one of them. Dubois is either playing on the second line, probably on the first line with Ovechkin and Wilson. So he's going to get more of his assists, as well as he likely will be able to have an opportunity to get more goals himself. And so I expect both of their stats to go up, because Mangiapane is probably on the second line with Dylan Strome, who, by the way, had 67 points last year, or Dubois and Mangiapane are playing together and pushing each other by setting each other up and goal scoring for each other. So this is all good things that we have going on right now. Right? If you're playing with Strome, fine. He's going to set you up and you're going to score. Who's playing on the left side on that second line is kind of up in the air. I know who I think will be there. And I imagine other people kind of are wondering this or thinking the same thing. Right. But they also brought in some other guys to kind of fill out the bottom six in terms of their forwards, or maybe the fourth line. They signed Brandon Humane from, I actually don't know where he came from. 2 years, $3.7 million. Cap hit comes out to 1.85. And they signed Taylor Radish, who, interesting last name, 1 year, $1 million deal. And I was listening to, who was I listening to? No, I'm sorry. I was reading the thing for Brian McClellan. I think it was on Russian Machine, where they were talking about, or he was talking about him and how he scored. Where's his stats? I was just reading about this. So on the 2022-23 season with the Chicago Blackhawks, he had 37 points, 20 goals, and 17 assists. So they could have brought in a guy for $1 million. Could he score 20 goals next season, or 15 to 20 goals next season? If that ends up being the case, given how last season went, he's third on the team in goals if he scores 20.
Wow, really?
$1 million. That, I mean, I don't know if he gets 20 playing on the fourth line, but if he can chip in, let's say 15, then he's sixth on the team in goals last season. Actually, a little higher because Dubois got 16, so he's actually fifth on the team in goals last season. He would have been tied with Sonny Milano. So I like the moves that they're making. Yes, does this potentially create blockages for a guy like Ethan Frank or Riley Sutter or Chase Prisky or Pierre Dubé or any of those guys that are kind of down in Hershey? Yes, potentially. But it's also a small enough cap hit that you can be look, you did not do well enough in training camp. Enjoy the press box. We're giving this other guy an opportunity. And so there's plenty of other moves that can be made with this team. They also I didn't even see about these. These are smaller moves. So they brought in Luke Phillip on a 1 year, $775,000 deal, as well as Spencer Smallman brought in 1 year, $775,000. So there's definitely opportunities to fill out Hershey's roster as well, considering they've lost a couple of guys. I think Snively went to Detroit. Jimmy Huntington went to the Penguins. Right. In terms of guys going out, we talked about Kemper leaving, Nick Jensen going to Ottawa. They did trade Beck Mallenstein, who was a bit of a shock that they moved him out, but I can understand why. He was scheduled to be a restricted free agent, so he likely was going to cost a bit. I don't know if he signed a new deal with Buffalo as we're recording here, but I'm curious to see what that number would be. Sent him for a 2024 second-round pick. Max Pacioretty will not be returning. I believe he's still currently a free agent. And then Nicholas Aube-Kubel was not brought back. He signed with Buffalo on the first day of free agency. So lots of moves in terms of bringing in new guys and sending guys out. But then they also made some moves themselves in terms of re-signing guys.
Well, but before we get to the re-signs, I do want to talk about the guys that have left town and have gone on to potential greener pastures, if you will. But like you said, Darcy Kemper, Nick Jensen, Beck Mallenstein, Max Pacioretty, Nicholas Aube-Kubel, all of these guys, really good players, NHL caliber players. Joe Snively, if you want to throw him in there, Jimmy Huntington, if you want to throw him in there as well. Most of the time spent in Hershey. But when we had our buddy Ryan Drury on the show mid-season, happy belated birthday to Ryan, by the way. When we had Ryan on the show mid-season, he was like, look, nobody's protected. If you're going to do anything, maybe Alex Ovechkin, Tom Wilson. I think he picked John Carlson potentially as guys that you would protect, but everybody else was on the table for a trade. All these players that have left town, while yes, great players, obviously the team last year and the year before, it didn't work with this new head coach. Yeah, sure, the new head coach did get the team to the playoffs his first year, but still not what we were really looking for. So all of these guys leaving, it's sad to see them go. However, I don't think anybody is going to be mad at the Caps for letting some of these players go, bringing in these new players. Obviously things weren't working out. So all these guys that left, like, I don't see anybody, crying about it. I guess I should say, like, this is a part of sports and these guys were great and all. Thanks for your time, but it was time to move on. And these guys, I think, it's not a huge loss for the Capitals that these guys are leaving town.
Yeah. I mean, I think Pacioretty, was a nice signing last year. It was a good idea. It just kind of didn't work out the way that the team expected. Aube-Kubel, I'm a little surprised they didn't want to bring him back, but I think Radish, and I like the Duhaime signing, and I think he has some familiarity. He and Chukrin, I was watching a part of Chukrin's sort of Zoom interview with a number of the reporters, and they know each other. I want to say from maybe it was Arizona or juniors or something. Mallinson is the one that I was like, huh.
Yeah, I thought that guy had a future in DC. I thought they liked him a lot in DC. I thought the new coach liked him a lot.
I think he did too. I mean, I know that one thing that Carberry wanted was that sort of, he wanted to see, it took a while to get there, was the Dubinsky. Mallinson. Why did I say every time I see Brandon Duhaime, I think of Brandon Dubinsky just because there's so many similar letters. Was the Mallinson, Dowd, Aube-Kubel line, which worked decently for a while. Mallinson surprised me mostly because of the timing of it. I saw him getting moved out eventually once he got too expensive. When you're in a league that requires you to fit within the confines of a salary cap, you have your core guys, and then you have to constantly be rebuilding around them. And so eventually guys like Nick Dowd, guys like Beck Mallinson, guys like Nick Jensen, other players, Aube-Kubel, like guys that are not part of that core, eventually are going to cost you too much money. And so you replace them with younger guys or free agents that won't cost you as much, that ideally are able to get you that same level of production. And so Mallinson was never that's not touching. He could have been, but it was unlikely that he was going to be a long-term player for this organization. I just didn't see it coming yet. My guess is they looked at the salary cap situation. They looked at the moves that they wanted to make, and they went, he's going to make or probably get X number of dollars and take up X number of cap space. And they went, you know what? We can probably bring in a guy in free agency that can produce the same amount or relatively the same amount. Duhaime's probably a bit more of a rugged guy, and move him out for a second round pick, which is a good deal, and be able to potentially get someone for the future to help this organization. So I like the trade. I was just like, that one hurt a little bit in terms of him leaving, because I really like what he brought to this team and the organization, but I can see why they did it. It wasn't it wasn't the Forsberg for Erat trade where I'm looking at it going, what are you doing? Right. Like, I can't connect the dots here. I can't get from A to B and go, okay, I can see why. I don't agree with it, but I can see why you did this. I can see why they did it with Mallinson, and for the most part, I understand it. It just hurt a little bit, but when it didn't hurt anymore once free agency started and I saw the moves they were making, and I was going, oh, okay, I get it now. I understand why you're doing this, and I'm excited to see where this team goes. Like, I'm looking at this roster and going, wow, they really rebuilt this team. And I don't necessarily have that same connection because there's so many new players, but I'm excited for the players that they've brought in and seeing where this team is going to go. This is a better team on paper anyways. This is a better roster than we had at this point last year, or at this point in September and October. And so I'm excited to see where we're going from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like a lot of these guys that we're bringing in. The one guy, very interesting. I know you're really excited about Chukrin and Dubois and all that. I want to see what Tyler Radish is going to do. I've heard there's a lot of comparisons to what happened to him and what happened with Dylan Strome, where he was playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. He wasn't really happy there. Things weren't going his way. He's got a lot of talent. He's got to be in the right type of environment, and they're hoping they can kind of mimic what happened with Dylan Strome with Tyler Radish. So I'm kind of excited to see what he's going to bring to the table next season.
See, the thing with Radish is, in terms of his NHL production, he played it 1 season with Tampa, 3 with Chicago. Well, Tampa, Chicago in the same season. He had 11 goals, 20 goals, and then last year had 5. So I don't feel like I'm seeing enough to go, yeah, all right. Like, it's another one of those moves that is low risk, high reward.
Right.
So if it works out, amazing. You can sign him to a new deal during the season or after the season. If it doesn't work out, it's not taking, I mean, you don't have any cap space right now, but it's not taking up a ton, and you can let him go in the offseason, or he can go sit up in the press box. It's not $4.5 million for a season to see how he does. It's 1 year, $1 million. If it works out, amazing. If it doesn't, see ya. Thank you for your time, for lack of a better way to put it. And so I think it makes a lot of sense. And the reality is, if it doesn't work, you have a couple of guys in the minors, or if you're looking to free up cap space, you might be able to shift a guy out. Like, the only one I can think of is Sonny Milano. Do you move him out? Probably not get really much in return, with the understanding that you're just freeing up cap space, and then bring up a guy from Hershey into Milano's spot, or you bump up Radish to the third line and fill in his spot with someone else from Hershey on the fourth line. So the thing is, they have flexibility here in terms of what they can do. And if it doesn't work out, it's not a ton of money.
Yeah. And
I mean, it's $1 million. It's a lot of money, but like not in the world of professional sports.
If I'm not mistaken, Nicholas Aube-Kubel, I think he was on $1 million contract last year as well. And he spent, 80% of the time this past season in Hershey. So I'm sure that they are okay with letting that guy go as well. I didn't really see a lot from him this past year, so I don't think that's a huge loss. But he was a big contract, and I think like they had just re-signed him, and then a week later sent him down to Hershey.
Well, Kubel, they re-signed or signed him. But I think the reality is they're potentially replacing him with a guy who's going to cost $500,000 less. Aube-Kubel signed with Buffalo for 1.5. They got Radish for 1.
Yeah.
So, it's a good deal. So we'll see how he does. I mean, I think he can bring some offensive production to the fourth line, which, Dowd has a bit of offensive production in his game, and we'll see what we get from Duhaime. So, Duhaime. So we'll see. There's an I in there that I feel like shouldn't be there. And so we'll see what is to come, obviously. But I'm looking at this roster, and, we can go into kind of the guys the Caps re-signed real quick, but then we can kind of get up into a lineup situation and kind of what we see. But I kind of feel like there's one or two. It's not like last year we're going into the season going, I'm not really sure what this lineup's going to look like. Right now, I'm looking at it, I'm going, really, if the questions are, is this person on the second or third line? Is this person on the first or second line? It's not who's going to be on the second line. It's, well, we can have a guy here or here, and I feel like it's just the lineup is a bit more secure. If I'm Spencer Carberry, I'm like, ooh, look at all these new toys I get to play with.
Yeah, this guy's got to be ecstatic, where like he came in, he had a good year last year, got to the playoffs, but it really wasn't the season he had hoped for. Nick Backstrom is out. TJ Oshie was constantly out. There were constant issues. There was constant retooling. Now he gets a chance to bring in players that probably he wants to work with, young players as well. This team has gotten significantly younger with these signings. So I think this is going to be a brand new Capitals team. It really is. On paper, like you said, on paper, everything here makes sense, and it's an exciting time to be a Caps fan. So, yeah, this is going to be a good season to watch come along.
100%. I mean, it's going to be fun. Like, I'm excited to see what happens in September. In sort of the preseason training camp stuff. I'm excited to see the lineups. And, I think those first few games of preseason will be like, okay, let's see how things fit. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see the sort of the defensive pairings kind of start earlier to see how guys start to gel. Like, let's quickly go through the Caps re-sign, and then guys the Caps re-signed, and then kind of we can talk lineup stuff. Connor McMichael, 2-year, $4.2 million contract extension. that is a good deal for the Capitals in terms of saving cap space. And it's a bridge contract for him. So he goes into it not having to worry if it's a 1-year deal. What's going to happen next year. He can continue to prove himself. He's got solidified on that third line center spot and see what comes of his career over the next 2 years. I mean, McMichael is only...
He's a young guy.
Yeah, where is his age? So McMichael is 23. He turns 24 January 15th. So he'll be what? Turning 26? Going into that'll be his big contract. If everything goes well, that's when you're looking at 5, 6, 7-year deal for Connor McMichael. And so I think this is, I would have loved to sign him to 7 years at a cap hit of only $2.1 million, but that was just highly unrealistic. And so I think his next year, looking at probably, if things go well, that $4 to $4.5 million for him going into the next contract. And so I think I think it was a really good deal. And then they solidified some things for Hershey, as well as some guys that they can bring up and see what they got in September. Forward Riley Sutter to a 1-year, 2-way deal. Defenseman Hardy Hamanaktel to a 1-year, 2-way deal. 2-way contract, yeah. Ethan Frank, 2-year contract. 2 ways in 24-25, 1 way in 25-26. But I think the reality is he has to pass through waivers to be set down before this upcoming season. So he's a guy that I have to imagine they're intending on keeping in DC, because I don't think they want to lose him for nothing. This is a guy that's played very well in Hershey and has not gotten the opportunity in DC. I could fully see him on this roster if they move out of forward because of salary cap situations. They re-signed goaltender Mitch Gibson to a 1-year, 2-way deal, and defenseman Chase Prisky to a 1-year, 2-way deal. And so there's a lot of opportunities for guys to potentially be coming up and going down due to injuries or whatever the case may be. And so lots of good moves. It sounds like, according to McClellan, they're kind of done. He's probably not entirely honest, but I think they're probably going to be a little quieter until we get towards the end of the summer into September, see what they got here, unless an opportunity comes along that they can't pass up, or they just need to free up some cap space. Because right now, presumably, if you put Backstrom and Oshie on long-term injured reserve, you only have $780,000 in cap space to play with. That's not a lot of money.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to say, we're going to talk Backstrom and Oshie. With all of these signings, all the money being thrown around, it's highly likely that Oshie is going to be retiring, if not this offseason, sometime this year. It looks like potentially that they are planning to not have Oshie a part of this lineup at all.
I don't know how you fit him in. All right, so let's say Oshie plays, right? His cap is... Where'd he go on this list? His cap, I don't even know where he is. There it is. His cap is $5.75 million. I have absolutely no freaking idea how you can put him in the roster, because you can't. You'd have to find a way to figure out $5 million. And that's not Milano. That's like Ethan Bear and James Van Riemsdyk. James Van Riemsdyk, that's his brother. Trevor Van Riemsdyk getting traded. That's 2 to potentially 3 dudes to move out to bring Oshie in. I know that they said, I think I read this, maybe I dreamt it, but Oshie said something along the lines, or maybe it was Sammy Silver of the Hockey News, that said, essentially, Oshie's going to know towards the end of the summer, maybe September or August, kind of what the plans were for him. But I have to imagine the Capitals already know.
Yeah.
Or they've got some idea to be like, well, we'll just ship this dude out if we can't make this work, if we need that cap space. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a team that needs the cap space because they're too far below the floor. Or is there a situation where they trade Oshie and a second round pick to a team just to take that contract on for the remaining?
We've seen that before.
Yeah, for the remaining, he got 1 more year on his deal, or they just put him on long-term injury reserve. The problem is, I think you can only put 2 guys on LTIR at a time. And if they put Backstrom Oshie on there, that's it. That's your LTIR for the year, because they're not coming off of it. So do you just paper trade them? And, they did that with more or less with Ole Kolzig years ago in terms of trading him, when they go to Toronto and Tampa.
Yeah, I think Tim Thomas, didn't he get that as well?
He went to Arizona or something in terms of a trade. It was just, to free up cap space for Boston. I could see them doing something like that with Oshie. He doesn't actually leave. It's a paper move. But they also have to give up something of value to get the other team to do that. But looking at this team and this lineup, there's a lot of new names in here, but I don't know what you think. I put in our notes in terms of our lineup, but what I kind of foresee coming, what I feel like is going to be the case, is you've got Ovechkin, likely Dubois, and Wilson as your top line. And I feel like that's a really good first line. You've got, in my opinion, LaPierre, Strome, and Mangiapane on your second line. It's going to be really funny when we find out that's not how you pronounce his name. Mangiapane, something like that, right? And then Milano, McMichael, and it should be Milano, McMichael, and Mangiapane, so we can have like the 3Ms together, but that's not what's going to happen. Yeah, I thought that'd be fun. The 3M line. Isn't that like they make those strips? 3M isn't like the Velcro strips and the
they do like the tinting for your windows and
yeah.
notes, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Milano, McMichael, and Protas, and then the Duhaime, Dowd, and Radish. That is my guess for your forward lines. I could see like LaPierre and Milano potentially switching. So LaPierre's on the third line, Milano's on the second line. I could see Strome or Dubois switching. So like Strome's on the first line, Dubois on the second line. But I feel like other than that, we're more or less set in terms of who the forwards are going to be, barring someone getting traded. And
well,
then
I'll tell you, dailyfaceoff.com right now, they have listed Ovechkin, Strome, Wilson, McMichael, Dubois, Andrew Mann. I'm not going to try to even pronounce that last name.
Manji. What do you think his nickname is? Like Ovi's Osh, Backy, Stromer. What's Mangiapane's? Do you think it's Van? Ooh, I like Manji. It's got to be a Y or like an IE thing at the end, right?
All right.
Manji, I think, makes sense. What's his first name?
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew. Yeah. So, like, I mean, you could just call him Andy. That's not as much fun. It's like boring.
Yeah.
They have McMichael on the left?
They have McMichael on the left, yeah.
Centering the third line.
All right, let me get to you. Third line, we have Sonny Milano, Hendrix LaPierre, Tyler Radish.
Okay.
And the fourth line is Duhaime, Nick Dowd, and Protas.
Huh.
Right?
I mean, no, but interesting. I can see, like, if someone wrote that out, I could be like, okay, I can see where your head's at. But Protas was solidified pretty well as that third line winger. I don't think they'd mess with that. And McMichael played center last year. So I don't know why they'd mess with that. I mean, I know LaPierre plays center as well, but I feel like he could do really well on the wing. And then
I really like the
LaPierre kicked out.
Yeah, I really like LaPierre and Protas together. They won the Calder Cup together last year, being paired together. They had some really good experience at the NHL level this past year. LaPierre is going to be a full-time NHLer this coming year. I think Protas and LaPierre together, you got the big, bulky guy in Protas. You got the shorter guy, the speedy guy in LaPierre. I think they're a really good pairing together. I would hate to see those two get taken away from each other.
I could see why that would be a benefit to the Caps. I don't love Milano on the second line.
Milano's on the third in here in this. Excuse me.
Well, I don't like McMichael on the wing either.
McMichael on the wing, yeah.
And the thing is, McMichael, and he keeps saying it. And I know it's not like the end of the world, a player playing out of position, but like McMichael keeps saying, "I'm a center."
Right.
Not verbatim, right? But he thinks of himself as an NHL center. So why? I don't know. I don't buy that one, and I really want to see LaPierre. And I want to give him more time, but I really feel like he would be a really good winger. And I like the idea of him being able to slide in. So Strome, Dubois, whoever he's playing with gets, kind of kicked out for putting the stick down too fast or whatever it is. He can slide in and he still has that skill set.
Yeah.
Like I totally see it. And like Strome, Dubois, first, second line, I can totally see, them kind of flip-flopping. I can see that happening during a game or throughout the season of just mixing it up to like throw different lineups at other teams where they're like, okay, so Ovechkin, Dubois, oh crap, Strome's out here. Okay, well, no, now we got to, we don't have the defensive pairing we want to take him on. Like, what are we going to do? And like, you can kind of mess with other teams away, especially if it's at home and you have, you can put out your lineup kind of, you have the second shift. That's not what I meant to say. So I can definitely see that. I also could see, well, we can talk about that in a minute in terms of like salary cap issues and where I think they could make some moves to free up some space. But going into the defense, so I looked at this and I did, because I believe if I remember this correctly, the Caps like to have this, I just blanked on his name. Carberry doesn't care in terms of like, stick preference versus if they're on the left or the right. But right. I feel like I put all the left shooters on the left and the righties on the right. So I have Chukrin and Carlson, Farvari and Roy, and then Sandin and either Ethan Bear or TVR.
Yeah, on this dailyfaceoff.com lineup, they have Chukrin Carlson, they have Sandin Roy, they have Farivari, Van Riemsdyk. That's their pairings.
I could see that too. And I think
Yeah.
that's, again, if you're like, you know what, these guys are not quite, they're not gelling in the way we would like, I could totally see Favari and Sandin switching. And I really feel like you got a nice mix of offensive production. You got a nice mix of defensive play. And then I feel like with only $780,000 in cap space right now, assuming that you're putting Backstrom and Oshie on LTIR, which gives you that much money, it's like 14. Let's do a little math, folks. Where's Backstrom? Backstrom's 9.2. So that's 14, 15. Why did I want to do this? Oh, my head hurts already. 14.9795. I think I have that right. Anyways, so that then gives you, you only have a little bit of cap space. You want to free up some more? Here's my suggestion. You trade Trevor Van Riemsdyk. Because that frees up. I know you just signed him in March of 2023, I think it was, to a new deal. So it's not the nicest thing to do, but that frees up $3 million, and you're doing a salary dump. You have Ethan Bear, you have Alex Alexiev, who was playing a lot better towards the end of the season. I really feel like he's a guy that can, needs to get more minutes. And you might have a couple other guys from the minors that you can kind of bring up, Prisky, whomever, to kind of see what you've got there, or you could trade him for someone else that's going to cost you less money. But I don't feel like you can have $3 million in TVR up in the press box, or Ethan Bear's 2.062 up in the press box every night, or every other night.
Is it confirmed that Ethan Bear will be back with this team next year?
I mean, he has a contract, and he's been released from the player assistance program, so I would assume so. But I feel like one of those guys has to go. Yeah. I understand why they want to carry 8 defensemen, but I feel like you can do that without costing as much money as it's going to cost. And I feel like I want to see a little bit more from Alex Alexiev. I could see kind of a rotation between Bear and Alexiev, or a couple of these guys. And I think the nice thing is it gives an opportunity for you to give nights off for players, especially when you have that sort of, maybe you have 5 games in 4 nights kind of thing going on. You can give someone like, dare I say it, John Carlson a night off. That's probably not going to happen. But the other nice thing about bringing in a guy like Matthew Roy, like Jacob Chukrin, is these are veteran guys who've been playing in the league for a while, that you're not playing Carlson as many minutes. You're not playing him 25 to 30 minutes a night. You're able to mix it. You're able to even out you're able to have better distribution in terms of the minutes throughout your defensive pairings, which keeps guys fresher further into the season. And this only helps this roster going forward.
I completely agree with you there. I'm a huge John Carlson fan, but Father Time always wins. And John Carlson's been in this league a very long time. He might need to have his minutes start to be limited a little bit. I mean, he is so strong on the power play. Maybe you kind of give him his minutes there when he's on the power play, and you let him sit a little bit longer than normal during the regular time of a game. So he's a fantastic player. He's a great leader on the ice, in the locker room as well. But as he gets older, you have to think about these type of things. Like, how many years does he have left to continue to play? Time will only tell, but you do have to think about that moving forward. Absolutely.
100%. And I think being able to bring in these veteran guys gives him an opportunity to reduce his minutes. And so he's fresher as the season goes on. You're still playing him probably 20 minutes a night. You're not reducing his time because he's not a good enough player. You're reducing his minutes because you have these other guys who also can play and play very well, and you can spread out. Same thing with the forwards. You're not necessarily having to put Ovechkin out there all the time because you need a goal, because you've got guys down your lineup that should be able to produce. LaPierre, I feel like he's going to be able to produce. Mangiapane, Dubois, Strome can produce. Wilson, if it's Milano or someone else, I think Milano's another guy that could be a cap casualty, and you move him out to free up 1.9 million, and then you bring up Ethan Frank. I want to see what Frank can do in the NHL. Dubé, Riley Sutter, Bogdan Triniev. I want to see some of these guys in the NHL, and whether that's okay, we've moved Milano out, we're going to move up Frank in the third line spot, or do we move Radish up and bring in Bogdan Triniev and play him in the fourth line winger spot and have him, knocking some bodies around, that kind of thing. And so there's options here, but they've got a problem with their salary cap. All these moves are great. I love it, but they've got some salary cap problems. And there's, assuming that someone wants to take on that contract, you've got some opportunities here. You've got some pieces that you can move out that don't dramatically hurt your roster. The problem is in terms of the forwards, if you move out Milano and you bring up Ethan Frank or Dubé, and none of these guys are working out, then you got a hole in your lineup. And you have to go outside the organization to bring someone in. But I feel like the risk is worth it at that point because you need that cap space. Now, that's almost irrelevant if you trade someone like TVR, because then now you've got almost $4 million in cap space and you're fine. So I'm curious to see what they do between now and the beginning of the season, or like in the earlier part of the season, in terms of being like, hey, we've got too much money sitting up in the press box. Let's make a move.
Yeah. And like you brought up Ethan Frank, he's done as much as he can in the AHL. Let's just take this moment real quick. Say congratulations to the Hershey Bears for being back Calder Cup champions. Hard fought victory. They got to win it in Hershey at the Giant Center in Chocolate Town. But Ethan Frank has been a fantastic talent to the Hershey Bears. He's earned his shot at the NHL level. He's earned his way there. And the guy is a back-to-back champion. He's led the Hershey Bears to those back-to-back Calder Cups. I mean, he can go for a three-peat if he wants it, but I'm sure the guy wants a new challenge moving forward as well.
Oh, I have to imagine in terms of wanting to do more. And I think it was, speaking of which, I think LaPierre he was interviewed after the game and he was like, yeah, it was great to win another one, but I don't really want to win another one here.
Right.
Like, I'm kind of done winning Calder Cups. It's time for me to win something in the NHL.
And he was the MVP as well. LaPierre
he had a great playoffs. But looking at like Ethan Frank's stats, he had 29 goals, 18 assists this past season for Hershey. So he had 47 points in 64 games. But in the playoffs, he had 10 goals and 7 assists, 17 points in 18 games in the playoffs. I want to see what he can do at the NHL level, and not in one game, not in two. I want to see him get a decent opportunity to produce in the NHL, and I really think you could have something there with him. He's only 26 years old. He's the same age as somebody like Radish, other guys you're bringing in. Let's see what we got in this guy. Like if they had gone out and signed Radish and they're like, we're going to give Ethan Frank that spot, I would have been like, yeah, all right. I'm down with this plan. I want to see what we got here. I want to see if they decide to move out Milano or up to the press box and give Frank a shot on the third line. I'm okay with it. I'm not going, I don't know. This might not be a great plan. This, I think, could work out. And so let's see what we got with this guy. I like Sonny Milano. Don't get me wrong. He struggled last season. And if those struggles continue or they need to free up cap space, in my mind, he's the first guy that they're looking at going, he's someone that's a good player for us. We've appreciated what he's done, but we have an opportunity to bring in someone who might be able to do the same or better for cheaper. And it saves us some money.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So what else we got to cover here in Caps World?
Do they have it? Yeah, so let's see. Let's get into the draft. They had, what was it? Just this past weekend where we had the NHL draft. Caps made, I didn't even count how many
at the Sphere in Vegas.
That was cool. That was very cool.
That was really awesome to see. Amazing graphics. If you got drafted this year, what an experience you got to do there at the Sphere in Las Vegas. That was so incredibly cool. Although I got to tell you, Dana White at the UFC said, man, if you saw what the NHL did, wait until you see what we do. And we have live fights at the Sphere. So I'm excited to see what else these people are going to come up with. But to be the first organization to have an event like this at the Sphere, NHL, you guys knocked it out of the park. The graphics were awesome. The environment was great. I loved what I saw at the draft.
Oh, it was very cool. And I like the moves that the Caps made.
Yes, that as well. That was also cool.
Not just in the trades, but like the guys that they brought in. So they made 8 picks, if I can count correctly, in terms of moves that they made during the draft. And so first round, they took winger. Did you see the video of him getting picked, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Where he was just in
pure shock.
So winger Tarek Parashek, they brought him in. A bit of a project, not in a bad way necessarily. I think he's got to put some meat on his bones. He's a stick, I believe, right now. Dude could use a sandwich, but I think he's going to be a good player for this team. I mean, he's one to definitely keep an eye on. Was tearing it up. He's a young guy. I think he's 17. So he's just turned 18. So he's a young guy, someone to keep an eye on over the next couple of years. Second round, they took 2 defensemen, one with that pick from Buffalo, one of their own. Defenseman Cole Hudson, and then defenseman Leon Mugli. No idea if I'm pronouncing these names right. I think they both have done pretty well so far in developmental camp. Third round pick was a nice one. They picked winger Ilya Protas, the brother of Alexei Protas, which
I'd
I
say
thought
that
was
name
kind of
sounds
cool.
familiar.
Yeah, I was like, And I like that his brother was there with him at the draft. I thought that was a really nice moment. And I think they interviewed Ilya after, and he thought it was really cool that he get to go to the same organization as his brother.
Yeah.
In the third round, they also picked winger Eriks Matika. Fourth round, they took a goalie, Nicholas Kempf. I like that there's an F at the end of that. It's not Kemp, but Kempf. And then it reminds me of the former NBA player Detlef Schrempf, where there's just like, I think it was a PF at the end, and you're like, one of those letters shouldn't be there. I'm an idiot. Anyways, sixth round, they took center Peter Sikora, which I feel like that's a name we always hear. Like, there must be a common name but we've had a number of Peter Sikoras in the NHL, spelled differently. And then in the seventh round, which was my favorite, I really hope this guy makes it. First of all, he's like 9 feet tall, but I really hope this dude makes. Did you see the video that was posted today in terms of they were doing this like skating drill where they were tethered? Right? Yeah. And he's like, he's 2 people in terms of height compared to the dude he was tethered to. Yeah. But it was center and son of former Buffalo Sabre, as well as a couple other teams. Center Miroslav Shatan, which of course is spelled Satan or Satan. Satan. Fun story. When I was a kid, I went to the Caps game. They were playing the Sabres, and Miroslav Sr. was playing for the Sabres. And my dad leans over to me, kind of laughing to himself. And he goes, woman in front of me just said that it's weird that the Sabres have a guy on the team named Satan. Had it on the back of his jersey, which I thought was a funny moment. So picked up Miroslav Shatan, again, 9 feet tall. Hopefully he can make it. I thought that would be cool. So it was a good draft, not necessarily one of the best, but when you're picking later in rounds, you kind of get, you got to really do your homework in terms of the scouts. And I thought the Caps did really well. So we'll see which one of these guys can kind of make it onto the roster. We've seen certainly guys that are picked further down the draft that are able to make it into the NHL, and hopefully a couple of these guys get an opportunity.
And we should bring up right now this week, a lot of these draft picks and a lot of other players that have been drafted recently are in DC at the MedStar Capitals Iceplex, and they're here for development week. And a lot of the coaches and guest coaches as well, such as Stanley Cup champion goaltender Braden Holtby, in town, working with the Capitals, teaching some of these young guns a couple tricks of the trade, if you will. So normally there's a big fan fest at the end of the week, and the teams face off against each other, but the Caps haven't done that in a couple years now. Since that horrendous day in the sun that they had the Stanley Cup, they haven't done it since that day. So obviously things had to change after that. But a guy that was here for development camp as well, Ryan Leonard, who has definitely had this spotlight on him since he got drafted 9th overall in last year's draft. He was asked again, hey, the Capitals are still interested of you joining this team this year. What are your thoughts? And he again declined and said he wants to go to school again. He wants
trade him.
He wants to do his sophomore
trade
year
him.
at BC.
He doesn't want to be here.
But he's got some goals in mind before he becomes a professional hockey player. He wants to win the NCAA Frozen Four. They got close. I believe who did they get beat by? Were they beat by Colorado this year? I think. I'm not positive. Not positive. I think they got to the semifinals and lost. And then he also said he wants to be a team captain at the World Juniors right around Christmas time. So the guy's got some goals. He's got some things he wants to do. He represented Team USA in the World Juniors last year, and he represented Team USA at the World Championship just a couple weeks ago. So he's definitely got his eye on some different prizes, but he's not thinking just Stanley Cup. He's thinking he wants to win it all before he gets to the Stanley Cup. So I like that mentality. I like what he's doing here. He's taking his time. He's not rushing into anything. He knows he's still got some stuff to learn, and he's doing it.
I mean, I think there was a spot for him in this lineup before free agency opened, and now I'm looking at it going, stay in college, take another year, keep developing. Yeah. I don't think they need to rush him is my point. And I know, one of the people we talked about, Matvei Michkov, who was a guy that the Caps, I think, were really interested in and wanted to take, ended up going the pick right before Leonard going to the Flyers. There's talk about him being a couple of years before he was able to come over to the NHL. He's actually now signed an entry-level contract with the Flyers. He's left Russia. And so that would have been a nice move for the Caps. But I don't think they're in a rush. They're not necessarily in the same position that the Flyers are in, where they're like, we need some offensive production. I mean, the Caps do, and they
Right.
went out and tried to, get that offensive production through guys who have already been in the league with Andrew Mangiapane and Pierre-Luc Dubois. And so I think they can let Leonard cook a little bit longer. I could potentially see him at the end, if the age thing works out right, but he could at the end of the end of the BC season,
BC.
at the end of the BC season, he could end up playing in Hershey. Like, I could 100% see something like that happen, or at least go over there and skate and practice with the team. So I'm not worried about this. This is not where I'm going, oh, come on, man. Like, we need your help. Like,
Right.
he probably could be quite good in the NHL, but I don't think his development is going to be stunted by playing another year in college.
No, young guy. He's got some schooling to do. He's figuring some stuff out. Don't
I
blame
go to
him for
math
waiting.
class.
Yeah, not. I don't blame him. He said that he stayed up till 3-4 in the morning after a contract was offered to him, but then he had to go to class early the next morning. So he's thought about it, but he's got his priorities in order. He's still working on it. He wants to do some stuff. So yeah, he's got time, and the way he's working right now, like there's a chance, maybe he makes the Winter Olympics Team USA team, because the NHL players will be allowed to go next year, or the next, was that 2026? So there's a chance, maybe he plays internationally once again, dons the red, white, and blue for Team USA down the road after World Juniors and after the World
road. I
Championship.
don't know about the next Olympics, maybe the one after that.
So yeah, 2026, and then what?
Next one, 2030.
2030.
So my guess, if his career is on a good track, 2030, I think, is a possibility. But
Right.
I mean, the U.S. Hopefully will have a good team, so it'll be, we'll see.
Which, by the way, everybody out there, it's July 4th week. Go to Disney Plus, watch Miracle. Great movie, great Americana movie, if you will. Watched it yesterday, still holds up. Great movie.
100%.
Yeah,
fantastic film.
So what else we got to talk about here in Caps World?
We just got the schedule was released.
That's right.
Couple of key, well, more than a couple of key dates, but sort of some fun dates coming up next season. Home opener, it's going to be against the Devils on October 12th.
Which is
that a Friday? What day of the week is that?
It's a Saturday night, but it's, I think, 4 days after the season starts.
Is it going to be schedule magnet again? Let's see.
That's always the go-to. They're doing some stuff. This is the 50th year, so they are going to do
an alumni schedule game. Magnet. You know why? I got a freaking phone.
I know.
I can look at the schedule on my phone.
I don't know if you noticed this or not. The NHL put out some key dates for just the entire league, and they tell us it's a start, that whatever. There's going to be games on Prime this year. Monday night games on Amazon Prime are going to be a thing this season, and the first Prime game is a Penguins game. But I thought that was interesting that now you're going to have TNT, TBS, so YouTube TV or something like that. You're going to need ESPN Plus, and now you're going to need Prime as well to watch NHL games. So yet another streaming
so much money
service
to watch these games, and you have to hope that the Monumental app works.
That's true. That's true.
Finally get Jacob Truker. I won't be able to watch him because that app sucks. Anyways, let's see. We got back-to-back games against Philly, October 22nd and the 23rd. First game against Pittsburgh will be on November 8th. We got our big road trip coming up, Colorado, Vegas, and their first trip out to Utah, November 15th to the 18th.
Right. If you look at the first half of the season, it's very even with home games and away games. There's not like a huge road trip in the first half of the season. So they got to really rack up these points in the first couple months in October, November, December, part of January, because they're on the road a lot towards the end. And that's where a lot of the longer road trips are. So if they want to enjoy their own beds and they want to enjoy their own home ice, it's going to be in a lot of the first part of the season. And this first 3-game road trip, it's like the first time they're away from home for an entire weekend in mid-November. So I mean, you get about a month of back and forths and not a lot of travel. So the big Colorado, Vegas, the repeat from 2018, and then the first trip to Utah, that's going to be your first real taste of a long travel time long traveling trip, especially, you know, partly out west.
Yeah. Utah will be cool. It'll be nice to get out there and see how things are going
Yeah.
with the new team. Let's see. We got first. Oh God, I can't say this sentence seriously, but the first matchup with the Stanley Cup winning Florida Panthers.
Florida Panthers.
Wow, that just sounds weird. On November 25th, they got a game on Black Friday, November 29th. They'll be playing the Islanders, 3 p.m. home game. Playing on Christmas Eve. That's rude. As well as New Year's Eve.
Christmas Eve
Winter Classic
on December 23rd.
Oh, Eve. I read it wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's less rude, I guess. Who's got the Winter Classic this year? I cannot remember.
That's a good question. I know it's on New Year's Eve this year, so it's actually in 2024. Yes,
oh, it's Chicago, St. Louis, Chicago.
Chicago, yeah, that's right.
No, wait, that was last year. Sorry. Actually, I have no idea who it is.
No, it's Chicago.
Is it? Oh, it is Chicago. I read the thing because it's going to be on 20. It's in 2024. Never mind.
Right.
I read it wrong twice. Go me. Anyways, moving on. There looks like they got a pretty long road trip coming up from the 21st of January to the 30th. That's their Western Canada Seattle trip. They're going to play on Super Bowl Sunday again versus Utah at home. They'll have, their break will be February 22nd?
From the 10th through the 22nd.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's some of them. This is when the Four Nations tournament thing is going on.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know how I feel about this Four Nations tournament. I really don't, because of the Four Nations,
like it, some are going to be like, I don't care.
Of the Four Nations involved is not the one that just won the World Championship. I feel like if you just won the World Championship, you should be like a shoo-in to be a part of the Four Nations tournament because they whooped everybody else that was available. So I don't know.
That's the thing. It's who's available for the championship. So like, yeah, you're the best, but you're the best of not everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we'll take a trip out to California on March 11th through 13th. I feel like you want that to be in January or February because that's when it's coldest. And then their last home game will be on April 13th. And then they actually wrap up the season in Pittsburgh on April 17th. So that's kind of some key dates coming up this season.
Another thing I noticed is that we get the 2 games in DC against Pittsburgh. I believe it was November and January, and then the last 2 games are the away games. So in Pittsburgh for the last 2 games, March and April. There's a lot of hockey to play, until that last game on April 17th. But to be up against the Pittsburgh Penguins for that final game, it really could come down to which team makes it to the playoff all the way to the end. It really could be that April 17th game could very much feel like a playoff game, even though it's the last season or the last game of the regular season.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting. There's a lot of good games to go to. And I haven't been to a game since, October of 2019. So I'd love to get out to a game. Take my son, maybe my daughter, but she's 2, so she's going to be like, what's happening?
Right.
And like trying to get onto the ice or something. I won't do that. So, so we'll see kind of what happens there in terms of getting out to a game. But I'd love to get back to some more games and see these guys play in person. Get me a Jacob Chukrin jersey. No, I won't.
There you go.
Jersey, though, if it goes well, I'm getting a shirt.
I mean, this is a big season. This is the 50th year for the Capitals. They've put out some of their retro branding.
Like the patch.
The patch is not bad. I like the patch. Absolutely. So I'm sure they're going to have some retro stuff. But again, hey, retro pricing, please give me some retro pricing because I would like to go to a game.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, me neither. But still.
They have some cool shirts at the Kettler or whatever it's called now. MedStar Iceplex or whatever. They have some interesting shirts that have like kind of the 50th anniversary one. There's the blue one I really liked.
Yeah. They're doing stuff for incorporating all the past logos. So there's going to be some Screaming Eagle stuff. There's going to be some old school 70s hockey stick and puck. And yeah, there's going to be all kinds of stuff that's coming out this year. So I'm very excited about that. But Coach Dan, have we covered everything for this episode of What the Puck?
I think that's the show, buddy.
All right, everybody. Well, if you would like to continue the conversation with Coach Dan or I, you can. It's real easy. All you have to do is post to either one of us over on X. You can follow me at Brando Cash. Hopefully you are watching this episode streaming over on X on my account at Brando Cash. Coach Dan, where can people post to you at?
Just like trying to irritate me with the X stuff. You can find me on Twitter at WTP Coach Dan, talking all kinds of Capitals related stuff as news breaks or happens and I find out about it. Then I'm on there talking about Capitals, talking about Arsenal Football Club. On there talking about what other sports? You got the Orioles, number of guys going to the All-Star game.
That's
Talking
right.
about the Nats from time to time, the Bills, the Commanders, and all sorts of other things in the wide world of sports.
Have you seen a Cybertruck in person? Elon's Cybertruck.
No, but I know
With,
you have.
Yeah, I've seen him twice on the road.
Segue, buddy.
But I'm just wondering, people can post on X from their Cybertruck if they want to feel the need to do that. Because it's all hands free, right? Like self-driving.
Oh God, we deserve what's coming. I'm just saying it now. Anyways, that is somehow finding me on Twitter at WTP Coach Dan. But hey, if you've enjoyed the show, go ahead and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/whatthepuckpod. It's where we'll post when new shows are coming out, as well as all sorts of things related to the Washington Capitals, the Hershey Bears, South Carolina Stingrays, the Hershey Cubs, and the National Hockey League. That is facebook.com/whatthepuckpod. But Brandon, I was talking about the Bills and Commanders ever so slightly moments ago. But if someone happens to be a fan of a certain purple clad team based out of Baltimore, is there a podcast they should check out?
That's right. We are very close. We are in the same month as NFL training camp. It actually starts. Veterans come to training camp on my birthday this year. So very exciting about that. You can check out my Baltimore Ravens podcast called The Call. We'll be back in full force in just a week or two, which is insane to think about. The fact that football season is so close. But like Coach Dan said, make sure you do check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/whatthepuckpod. There are new rules with Facebook that you cannot live stream on Facebook unless you hit a certain amount of followers. So if you are a listener of the show and you are on Facebook, please spread the word. Let people know that they should like our show. They should like our Facebook page, because we would love to be able to stream directly to Facebook like we are doing right now with X and Twitch and YouTube. So that's just another way to spread the show and be a little bit more interactive with you guys. So we definitely want to do that. But wherever you subscribe to this podcast, you can also subscribe to my Baltimore Ravens podcast called The Call. It's a great show that we get to do there. Put out a couple shows a week. It's a lot of fun, a lot of work, and we'll be doing live streams for that show as well. So there's a lot going on. Now, we do this show for fun. We're a member of the Fans First Sports Network. We really appreciate you guys all being interactive with us. Make sure you write us an Apple Podcast review. You rate us over on Spotify and let people know, say, I'm a Washington Capitals fan. I listen to What the Puck, and you should too. So, Coach Dan, July 4th, right around the corner, mere hours away for us as we record this live. What is your favorite July 4th tradition? Fireworks? You're a fireworks guy?
Oh, yeah. Enjoy me some fireworks.
Did you let a professional do it, or do you do it?
I'm in Montgomery County. We're not allowed to play with fireworks down here. I mean,
Wink,
my
wink.
neighbors, I think, do. And I don't. No, I don't have any because I have no interest in setting my house on fire. But I, we went and saw some fireworks on Friday that were for the this past Friday for the July 4th celebration, and my 2-year-old was very amazed by them, but also a little scared. So we were talking about seeing fireworks earlier this week, about seeing them on Thursday, and she goes, "No, I scared," and I was like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Got your little noise canceling headphones. Everything's gonna be great." I think fireworks. I like a good hot dog and some French fries as well, but fireworks is definitely my favorite tradition. What about yours?
Oh man,
you're gonna say something very Maryland right now, aren't you?
No, I'm not at all.
Having crabs down by the harbor.
Well, I did have soft crabs. I grilled up some soft crabs tonight for dinner, so I did have soft crabs to kick off the holiday weekend.
All right.
But let's see. Like you, I mean, burger, hot dog, very Americana. But I got to go. Like you and I, we went to school for movies and film and that kind of stuff. So I got to go with. I have to watch Independence Day. I have to watch The Sandlot.
Ah,
I have to watch
okay.
Jaws. I have to watch I Know What You Did Last Summer. All of those movies
Yeah, my kids
are
are not
worth.
old enough yet for me to, and like they're
The
way.
Sandlot. Probably you could do The Sandlot.
No, I don't think they're old enough to really. Well, definitely not my daughter, but I don't
Yeah.
think my son's old enough yet to really sit through something like The Sandlot. Not yet.
Yeah. But that's my go-to. I love doing that. I love watching a Capital Fourth on PBS at night, 8 o'clock at night. Oh, just moved my whole camera because I kicked the table.
So excited, everybody, about the fourth.
But the Capital Fourth is really cool. I like doing that as well. I'm a little worried about fireworks here in Maryland though, because it sounds like there's going to be a lot of rain in the forecast. So hopefully
No, I think that's earlier in the day.
oh, okay.
Ooh, you know what? Now that I just said that, I'm gonna end up being
You're jinxing them. You're jinxing them.
Yeah, let me check while you talk. I'll double check everybody, so that way you also know what the weather's gonna be like. Because my keyboard just stopped working. That's
But
amazing.
it is 4th of July is a little weird this year because it is on a Thursday. So it's like you kind of were either like forced to take the day off or you go into like an empty office on Friday. Yeah, well, yeah, you got to take off the 4th, but it's like everybody else, you like forced to take off the 5th, or you go into the office, there's nobody there. So it's like it's kind of a 4-day weekend, but it's kind of not a 4-day weekend. It is a weird spot for that holiday, but
Weather.com has rain, at least down here in Montgomery County, outside Rockville. It's got rain from scattered thunderstorms, that is, from 2 p.m. Through 8 p.m. And then just showers when the
so
fireworks are
it's going to
supposed
be
to be
scattered
happening.
and then really rain.
I think we might be seeing fireworks on Friday or Saturday is my point.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, that's fireworks are fun. I love a good movie, Americana movie. Let's see, what was like I said, I watched Miracle earlier this week. There's also great movies, wartime movies, Saving Private Ryan, great movie. The Patriot, really good movie. Independence Day is one of my favorites. Like it's all about the movies for me. That's what I like to watch. Well, I think that's pretty much it for the show this week. Coach Dan, we're probably not going to talk again until training camp unless something crazy happens.
No.
Yeah. So everybody be on the lookout for the next show. We'll be around. Make sure you follow us over on Facebook, but we really enjoy doing this live stream stuff. We're going to continue to do this more often. I'm going to try to figure out what's going on with Instagram. So we'll figure that part out as well before we get going. But that's pretty much it for the show this week. Everybody, say it loud, say it proud. Let's go, Caps.